Former Prince Andrew was dismissive and wouldn't speak to royal staff members unless he had to. Opening. Welcome back to Royal Saga, your premier destination for exclusive stories from the Spanish monarchy, British royalty, and royal families across the globe. If you've been with us, you know we reveal how royals really behave when cameras aren't watching. And if you're new here, subscribe right now because what former palace staff are revealing about Prince Andrew's character is absolutely eye-opening. For years, palace staff maintained their silence about Prince Andrew's behavior behind closed doors. But as Andrew's public reputation has collapsed, former employees are finally speaking out, and their accounts paint a disturbing picture of a man who viewed the people serving him as beneath acknowledgement. Charlotte Briggs, who worked as a maid at Buckingham Palace, recently told The Sun, Prince Andrew was by far the rudest member of the royal family. He wouldn't even acknowledge you in the corridor. But here's what's most revealing. Multiple staff members describe a specific set of rules Andrew allegedly had for how staff should behave in his presence, rules so dehumanizing that one longtime palace employee called them Victorian in the worst possible way. And what happened when a new footman accidentally broke one of these rules has become infamous among royal household staff. Stay until the end because what these revelations tell us about Andrew's fundamental view of other people might explain far more about his later behavior than we ever realized. Main content. Let's start with documented accounts. Charlotte Briggs worked at Buckingham Palace for 4 years and has gone on record about her experiences with various royals. About Andrew, she said, he would walk past you like you were a ghost. If you said good morning, he'd just stare straight ahead. The only time he'd acknowledge you was if something was wrong, if his breakfast wasn't right or his clothes weren't prepared correctly. This isn't an isolated complaint. Paul Burrell, Princess Diana's former butler who also had extensive contact with other royals, has said in interviews that Andrew was notoriously difficult and treated staff like they were invisible unless he needed something. What makes these accounts particularly credible is their consistency. Former staff members who worked at different royal residences during different time periods all describe similar patterns of behavior. Andrew rarely making eye contact with staff, almost never saying please or thank you, communicating through curt commands rather than requests. One former footman, speaking anonymously to the Daily Mail, described working a formal dinner where Andrew was present. He had this way of clicking his fingers when he wanted something. Not even looking at you, just clicking his fingers. You'd have to figure out what he wanted. More wine, his plate cleared, whatever, without him having to waste words on you. The alleged rules that staff mention are particularly telling. According to multiple sources, Andrew expected staff to avoid making eye contact unless directly addressed, to leave rooms by walking backwards if he was still present, and to never speak unless spoken to first, even if they had relevant information to share. One former valet told The Times, I remember once needing to inform him that his car had arrived to take him to an engagement. But he was on the phone, so I waited. And waited. Finally, after standing there for almost 10 minutes, he finished his call, walked right past me without a word, and left. I ran after him to tell him his car was there, and he looked at me like I was insane for bothering him with information he apparently should have just known. Telepathically. The incident with the new footman that's been widely discussed among former palace staff allegedly occurred during a dinner party at Royal Lodge. The footman, who'd only been working in the royal household for a few weeks, apparently asked Andrew a clarifying question while serving, something like, would you prefer red or white wine, sir? According to accounts, Andrew didn't answer. He simply stared at the young man with visible displeasure until the footman, deeply uncomfortable, chose red wine and retreated. After the dinner, the footman was reportedly called in by the head butler and told that Prince Andrew had complained about overly familiar staff, and that he should never address the prince directly unless the prince spoke to him first. What's significant about these accounts is how they contrast with descriptions of other royals. Staff members consistently describe Queen Elizabeth II as considerate and warm, often asking after their families and remembering personal details about their lives. King Charles, while demanding about standards, is described as appreciative and courteous. Princess Anne is famously direct but respectful. Even Prince Philip, who had a reputation for bluntness, was described by staff as basically kind beneath the gruff exterior. But Andrew seems to have existed in a category apart, someone who genuinely didn't view staff as deserving of basic human courtesy. Royal historian Robert Lacey has suggested that this behavior stems from Andrew's position as a spare royal who never had real responsibility but always had status. He had enough privilege to demand service but not enough meaningful duty to develop the humility that comes from genuine public service. Build to finale. But here's the account that former palace workers say reveals Andrew's character most clearly. It involves something that allegedly happened during a weekend at Sandringham, witnessed by multiple staff members, where Andrew's treatment of an elderly housekeeper was so callous that Queen Elizabeth herself intervened, and what the Queen reportedly said to her son afterward has been repeated in palace circles ever since. Call to action. Before I reveal what Andrew allegedly did to this elderly housekeeper and the Queen's response that left him visibly shaken, hit that subscribe button. This is character exposed through action. Drop a comment. Can you judge someone's true nature by how they treat service staff? Closing tease. Here's what happened at Sandringham, the Queen's unusually harsh words to Andrew, and why this incident might be the clearest window into who Andrew really is beneath the royal title. This is absolutely revealing.